Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health System. Your health is our legacy. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights.
Hurry in to A.J. Doman Chevrolet for Car Bravo's Marvel sales event. You can get 0% financing on select certified models or get $1,000 consumer cash on every certified half-ton truck. That's right, you can get $1,000 on every Ford, Ram, or Chevrolet certified truck.
We say yes when others say no. A.J. Doman Chevrolet at the foot of the Market City Bridge in Berwick.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Bayou Time. Harry McCullough here. We start with a story that's been probably 4 months in the making and just shows again the tragedy of drugs that can happen in our area. Here to talk a little more about it is First Lieutenant Blake Tabor. He's with the Terrebonne Parish Sheriff's Office, the PIO, the Public Information Officer. This is a tough story, right? And again, you know, sometimes you think things can be recreational, but they can have tragic consequences down the road.
They're going to have a huge impact on even the ones that we prefer they not have impact on, you know. So again, this is never a good topic to discuss, but you know, we have been talking about a lot of tragedy that's been happening here in Terrebonne Parish over the last month, and this one is certainly no different. So on February 5th of this year, shortly before 2:30 a.m., we were called to a house in the 100 block of St. Louis Street. Reports surfaced at that residence of a 6-week-old child that was found unresponsive by the mother. So, of course, when we showed up, we made contact with the female. She was very distraught. And ultimately, we did locate the 6-week-old child who was in the front room area of the residence. We could tell that CPR was attempted by the mother and by other occupants in the home. And ultimately, the baby was found unresponsive. So, of course, our deputies quickly sprung into action. We began CPR activities until the Bayou medical personnel showed up on scene and took over that scene. Ultimately, the child was transported to a local nearby hospital for further medical treatment. You know, during the course of that investigation, we revealed some information that the child and the mother were laying in the same bed within the residence, and they went to sleep around 10 or 10:30 that particular night, and around 2:30 is when she awakened to find the baby unresponsive. So, of course, anytime we have this type of death investigation, it's not typically handled by our patrol division. We always bring in detectives, and that is certainly what happened in this particular set of circumstances. In addition to our violent crimes detectives, also crime scene detectives arrived on scene, and they began to process that scene. Once we began to do that, sort of a different story started to emerge, right? They ultimately found a large amount of illegal narcotic type paraphernalia within the home. It was, again, through multiple areas of the home, some in the bedroom, some in the bathroom. And so, you know, ultimately that led to the discovery that the mother, who was identified as a Megan Ashley Cortez, she's a 30-year-old female from Houma. You see her photographed here. She was an admitted heroin user, where we uncovered some information that on that particular day prior to the death, she did use heroin and had some close contact with the child. Now, again, you know, anytime you find a 6-week-old child deceased, we don't jump to conclusions. These are very intensive investigations. They're very lengthy investigations, and we have to make sure that all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So ultimately, a short time later, we discovered that the baby did not make it. The remains of the child was sent to the Jefferson Parish Coroner's Office, which is pretty consistent with this type of case. They are certainly experts in this field. So a full-scale autopsy was done, where our detectives did accompany and be a part of that, as well as a routine toxicology screen that was done. Now, the important thing to note about this was that there was no signs of physical trauma to the child. So it wasn't as though the child was beaten or strangled or anything of that nature, right? There was no indications of any abuse at that particular time. So, again, anytime a child death is brought to a coroner's office, that is a lengthy process. People think that toxicology screens can come back within a day. That's not necessarily the case, unfortunately. So sometime during the month of April of this year, we discovered that the autopsy report was complete and that the cause of death was ruled as a homicide by fentanyl overdose. So again, when we hear those results, that certainly sends us in a different direction. Again, our detectives continue to investigate this. They conducted a lot of interviews with not only the mother, but other family members and witnesses. We did work very closely with the Terrebonne Parish District Attorney's Office during this case in its entirety, and ultimately the decision was reached to arrest Cortez for negligent homicide. So ultimately, on June 3rd, we contacted her at her home where she was taken into custody on an arrest warrant, and she currently remains jailed at our location to await bond or trial with a $500,000 bond.
Wow. That's an incredible story and so sad, that a poor child just rubs up against maybe and
Absolutely.
and that's enough to overdose.
Well, and I think the important thing to point out is that, we understand and everybody understands what fentanyl is by this point. We've talked about it a lot. And everybody always seems to be very intrigued by the fact that such a small amount of fentanyl can cause someone harm. Now, when you take that into consideration with a 6-week-old child, it's a much smaller amount.
So she was not breastfeeding. This was a contact.
No, that's correct. I believe our investigators determined that there was no intent on her part by breastfeeding. It wasn't as though the baby was intentionally given the drug in any way, shape, or form. Again, this was a set of unforeseen circumstances and certainly very tragic.
Now, if she would have come out right away, could Narcan have worked on a child infant of this time?
Look, I'm certainly not a medical doctor, and I don't know that I'm educated enough to answer that, but we would have used any means necessary to try to save this child.
But you didn't know, right? Yeah. No, I mean, you first think suffocations or something,
Potentially
or
SIDS. There's so many things that happen with children that are really unfortunate.
God, just a tragic story. So, I mean, look, another lesson learned the hard way, but hopefully our community can become more aware. So,
Absolutely.
Blake Tabor, thank you so much.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having me.
We'll be right back with more Bayou Time right after this.